Volkswagen, Europe's largest car maker, is in trouble, as Germany itself faces a deep economic crisis.
Wenn Volkswagen hustet, dann hat das Land eine Grippe.
Profits are in a tight squeeze.
We have an industry globally going through massive transformation, a move to electrification and many new technologies.
I don't think Volkswagen has ever faced such a slew of challenges at the same time. Slowdown in vehicle demand, costly transition to electric vehicles, and then the traditional source of profits, China, has suddenly collapsed.
Chinese EV car makers are cooler because they know what we want.
And then there is VW's decision to drastically scale back production capacity in Germany.
Ja, das war natürlich ein Schlag ins Gesicht, sage ich mal, für die Belegschaft. Alle waren verängstigt.
And Donald Trump's tariffs threaten Volkswagen's plans in the US.
They don't take our cars, yet they send millions of cars in a year. Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen.
Can Volkswagen, long a symbol of the strength of German industry and the working-class prosperity that built the country, reinvent itself for the electric era and stay competitive as cheap Chinese models flood the market? I'm Patricia Nilsson, Frankfurt correspondent for the Financial Times, and I report on the fortunes of Germany's leading manufacturers, and top of them all, Volkswagen. Volkswagen's been a pillar of German industrial pride for decades. As the world's second-largest car maker, its cars are valued for their reliability and quality. As one of Germany's largest employers, its jobs are prized for being stable and well-paid.
Es ist, glaube ich, das größte Industrieunternehmen in der Bundesrepublik, also damit auch von der Bedeutung her für die Wirtschaft in der Bundesrepublik.
Spearheading the post-war industrial revolution,
VW and the country's car industry have maintained their manufacturing in Germany, long resisting the outsourcing that swept most major economies.
export of cars.
VW and its rivals are huge exporters, and China, with its rising middle class, has been a key market. But China's now shifted from customer to competitor.
2024 has undoubtedly been one of the most challenging years in Volkswagen's history.
2024 saw a fall in VW's sales and massive market value. And what happens to VW next won't just shape its own future. It stands as a bellwether for the future of manufacturing in Germany and all across Europe. In just 5 years, nearly 250,000 manufacturing jobs in Germany have gone. And there's fears that the business model of Europe's largest economy might be broken.
It's kind of surprising, the troubles that Volkswagen is currently in, because until now, it's been a symbol of Germany's post-war economic success.
Volkswagen is much bigger than just its namesake mark. It consists of brands from Audi and Porsche to Seat and Skoda, and employs roughly 680,000 people around the world, and supports hundreds of thousands of jobs at its suppliers. Beatrix Keim worked for VW for nearly 10 years in Germany and China.
Where you only need to say, well, I'm working for Volkswagen, everybody just knows what it is. You didn't need to explain. It was not the money trigger, it was the sheer opportunity offered by such a company with such a fame.
VW is the biggest brand of the group, producing and selling roughly half of all of its cars and facing its biggest problems, as reported across the world's media.
From VW Group.
We have a cost problem at Volkswagen brand, specifically in the German plants. We have to address this, and we will.
And workers were shocked last September when managers proposed to close plants and cut wages and jobs, breaking with Volkswagen's tradition of securing approval by workers on major decisions. This put the company on a collision course with Volkswagen's powerful Works Council and IG Metall, arguably Europe's strongest union.
The Workers' Council and the unions have a very strong say in the company. That was okay for the last 10 to 15 years because the markets were growing, the brands were growing, but there were always problems and challenges, that there were too many people, that the efficiency targets were not being able to be reached. And there was just no more leeway to let it go like in the recent years. There needed to be hard cuts. And this is what led to the crisis.
The threat of cuts was fiercely resisted with walkouts by the Works Council and the union, represented by Thorsten Gröger.
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, wir sind deutlich mehr als 3000 Leute hier. Und das wird erst der Anfang sein.
War dann aber, als es soweit war und Volkswagen den Zukunftstarifvertrag und die Beschäftigungssicherung gekündigt hat, ehrlich gesagt geschockt und enttäuscht vom Unternehmen.
In the end, the company struck a deal. No factory closures and no wage cuts or layoffs, but with 35,000 jobs to go through voluntary redundancies. All with the aim of halving production capacity in Germany by nearly 750,000 cars a year.
Ganze Standorte in Frage zu stellen, die Lösung in Massenentlassungen zu suchen, das hat natürlich jede Menge an Vertrauen zerstört. Und das ist jetzt an der Unternehmensleitung, das wieder aufzubauen. Die Basis ist mit den geschlossenen Verträgen da, aber jetzt muss das bewiesen werden.
To have a few strike hours in the framework of the negotiations and the transformation that the industry and our company is going through, I think is a completely normal part of a process.
But critics argue that the compromise still falls short of making Volkswagen globally competitive, and that its unique corporate structure stops it from taking tougher decisions.
Many investors have long criticized Volkswagen for its complex corporate structure, which many say is making it harder for the company to adjust quickly enough.
One such investor is Ingo Speich. Based in the financial center of Frankfurt, he knows Volkswagen is no normal company.
Volkswagen's corporate governance is very weak. The interests of the shareholders are not aligned. That leads to decisions that have to be compromised.
The majority of VW's voting rights are held by the Porsche Piëch family, but 20% are controlled by the state of Lower Saxony, effectively giving it veto power over key decisions. It's a legacy of post-war rules designed to protect regional jobs. And with many of Volkswagen's factories based in Lower Saxony, the state often aligns with the Works Council, which holds half the seats on the company's supervisory board, as required by German corporate law.
Such a management style takes time. It takes a lot of negotiation. And in an environment that's moving very fast, it doesn't help.
The close but often tense relationship between Volkswagen's management and workers is rooted in the company's unique history. VW was founded in 1937 as the Nazis wanted to build a people's car, a Volkswagen. This was the birth of the Beetle. After the war, it would take the world by storm. And part of the money used for this endeavor was stolen from Germany's trade unions.
Die Nationalsozialisten haben am 2. Mai 1933 die Gewerkschaften verboten und das Gewerkschaftsvermögen beschlagnahmt und Teile davon sind in den Aufbau des Volkswagenwerkes gegangen.
After the Second World War, it was touch and go whether Volkswagen would be shut down. The company had used forced labor during the war and built vehicles for the Nazi army, and the Allies seriously considered closing it down for good.
It then was supposed to be demolished, but then the British allies actually said, no, we keep it because we want to support the wealth in Germany, Marshall Plan, that it doesn't make sense to destroy a country like Germany totally.
The Allies wanted to re-democratize German industry and dismantle the power structures that had enabled dictatorship, turning VW into a pioneer of Germany's system of giving workers a voice in company decisions.
Aber eines sage ich euch ganz deutlich. Volkswagen gehört nicht allein den Aktionärinnen und Aktionären. Volkswagen gehört auch uns.
David Powells is Chief Financial Officer of the Volkswagen brand.
I worked for Volkswagen Group for 36 years, so I can say it's a very special company. We run our business on the basis of satisfying all stakeholders rather than the narrow definition of just satisfying the major shareholders. We have co-determination, and in the framework of that, we have to make sure that we can be competitive.
While from the 1960s, Volkswagen's factories spread across the world to countries like Mexico and China, the company's home is still in Germany, in Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg is the world's largest car factory, where the Volkswagen brand produces roughly 10% of its cars, and the group employs some 70,000 people.
If you have been to Wolfsburg, to all these plants, there is a certain pride. It's made in Germany, it's engineered in Germany.
Ich würde sagen, Volkswagen ist Wolfsburg.
Mark Schröder works in the factory's car body and paint shop.
Viele Menschen arbeiten über Generationen bei Volkswagen. Auch bei mir ist das so, mein Opa hat schon damals in einer Lackiererei gearbeitet und mein Vater arbeitet bis heute bei Volkswagen. Ich kann mich erinnern in meiner Kindheit und mein Opa und mein Vater haben mich dann mitgenommen ins Werk und das war natürlich überwältigend, ne? Diese riesen Produktionshallen, überall diese Maschinen und Anlagen und das hat natürlich, wenn man ein Kind ist das natürlich unheimlich interessant und spektakulär, ne?
Mark's colleague, Florian Hirsch, works on one of Wolfsburg's assembly lines.
Die positiven Sachen bei Volkswagen waren, als ich mich damals dazu entschieden habe, dass man vermeintlich eine sichere Zukunft hat, dass es gute Arbeitsplätze für einen guten Lohn gab. So, wenn es Volkswagen hier nicht mehr gibt, dann gibt es ja auch keinen Bäcker, dann gibt es ja auch keine Handwerksbetriebe, dann gibt es keine Friseure, gar nichts mehr.
So what's gone wrong for Volkswagen? Germany has been known for decades as a world leader in engineering. And nothing has embodied that reputation quite like the internal combustion engine, the very symbol of the country's industrial might. The trouble began when the European Union decided to ban the sale of new petrol-powered cars from 2035, effectively putting an expiry date on the very technology Germany's car makers were best known for. Companies like Volkswagen have spent billions figuring out how to build electric vehicles, all while trying to stay competitive in traditional cars. That double burden has squeezed margins, made worse by the fact that EVs still cost more to produce. Batteries are expensive, leaving less profit on each one sold.
Almost all the other European car makers issued profit warnings last year, multiple profit warnings. So the whole entire industry is struggling with this transition to electric vehicles.
Volkswagen's shift to electric didn't begin in earnest until 2015, when the so-called Dieselgate scandal exposed that the company had installed software in more than 10 million cars to cheat emissions tests and trick customers into thinking the vehicles were cleaner than they really were.
Following that scandal, Volkswagen in some ways was forced to make a shift away from diesel vehicles. And so that made that shift probably more radical than what the industry was prepared for.
It all started optimistically enough. In 2019, former Chancellor Angela Merkel proudly reopened Volkswagen's Zwickau plant in eastern Germany. For 100 years, it was petrol cars that had been made in Zwickau, from Audis to Trabants and the Golf. Now, it would make Volkswagen's new line of ID electric cars.
Ich freue mich auch ganz persönlich als jemand, der aus der ehemaligen DDR kommt, dass Zwickau das Flaggschiff dieses Wandels in der Mobilität ist.
The switch to electric technology was also a point of pride for Zwickau's mayor, Constance Arndt. She says it sparked excitement across the town.
Also wir bezeichnen uns ja als Geburtsstätte des Automobilbaus unter anderem. Und man spürt das, wenn man in der Region unterwegs ist, dass die Menschen das einfach im Blut haben, diesen Ingenieursgeist. Und deswegen ist das sehr intensiv miteinander verbunden.
And what happens here in the next couple of years will say a lot about the future of European industry and its ability to build electric cars profitably.
And Danny Auerswald, who oversees Volkswagen's business in Saxony, including Zwickau, says it requires big changes to the production process.
What is specific about building electric cars? Of course, we get the painted body out of the body shop. Then we build in the cockpit that is fully automated here. Then the whole battery assembly is done near the line, and then the battery and the chassis is put together in the so-called Marriott station, and then the final interior parts are assembled as well.
It's completely different to build an electric car than a combustion-based engine car. You need new people to develop such cars. You need new technologies, new supply chain, and you have to reconfigure your entire processes.
I think it was rather a big step also for the plant here and also for the people to really think new, to get, let's say, the real feeling for the new electric age, considering that these guys here built for ages only internal combustion engine cars.
But building electric vehicles is not enough. People also need to buy them, and demand has been lower than expected, not just for VW. And that's partly down to cuts in subsidies. In Germany, the ruling coalition in 2023 abruptly cut support for EVs.
Die Förderung für die Elektromobilität ist über Nacht aus Haushaltsgründen abgeschafft worden. Das paart sich jetzt mit einer politischen und öffentlichen Debatte darüber, ob das überhaupt der richtige Weg ist.
And this debate's been fueled by populist anti-green rhetoric. Germany's far-right Alternative für Deutschland has attacked electric vehicles as a fairy tale. Zwickau's mayor strongly disagrees.
Ich selber fahre seit fast 4 Jahren ein vollelektrisches Auto, selbstverständlich aus Zwickauer Produktion. Also ich würde mich als erstes freuen, wenn auch Politiker die E-Mobilität nicht immer schlecht reden würden.
But many customers are not convinced that it's easy or cheap enough to charge electric cars. And the design and functionality of VW's early electric vehicles were not highly rated by customers.
You have cars that are not highly accepted by the market. The competition is very fierce, and you have the huge fixed cost scale.
VW's first ID.3s were poorly reviewed, seen as expensive, with the range on the battery not far enough.
We are reinventing the car.
And there was one more problem: software. Another new technology that VW was not ready to master. The company went big, launching its own in-house software division called CARIAD. It hired thousands of coders to build systems to compete with Tesla and its Chinese rivals. But the promised software kept getting delayed, and customers complained of buggy cars.
The idea to bring the entire software development and new electrification strategy under one roof, it didn't work. It was far too complex.
Last year, after sinking nearly 12 billion euros into the struggling CARIAD, Volkswagen finally pulled the plug.
For people who love adventure
and surprised many by announcing a €5 billion joint venture with Rivian, an American EV startup.
Its new partnership with Rivian is an acknowledgement that Volkswagen cannot keep on going with its old ways, that everything cannot be done in-house. They needed to tap into outside expertise.
It was in the world's biggest car market that Volkswagen's troubles with software and batteries first became really clear: China. China had long been Volkswagen's stronghold. In the late 1970s, it was one of the first Western companies to be allowed in. And VW didn't just sell cars, it helped build the market. James King, former FT China bureau chief, saw the change firsthand on China's streets.
To own a Santana was really something amazing. It was really the first big-name foreign brand that came into China in the 1980s, formed a joint venture with a Chinese company and began producing these cars called the Santana. Everybody in China calls it Santana, and it just became a complete sensation. This was a massive status symbol for a slowly emerging middle class, and then by the mid-90s, more than half of all the cars in China were Volkswagen joint venture vehicles.
But now the roles have reversed. As Chinese drivers turn to smart electric vehicles with sophisticated software, VW started falling behind. It was part of a strategy launched in 2012 by then Science Minister Wang Gang to switch the country to electric cars with massive subsidies from the Chinese state at all levels. And many say that Volkswagen just didn't see it coming, that they underestimated their Chinese rivals and simply thought their incredible success in China would last forever.
After COVID, a lot of executives went to China and they said we were completely thrown off guard by the pace of the changes that's been happening in China. All of these Chinese rivals suddenly emerged.
A lot of other analysts that I've spoken to tend to point back to VW's headquarters in Wolfsburg in Germany. And they tend to say that maybe there was a sense of hubris. Maybe they didn't believe early enough in the transformative capabilities of the electric vehicle technology.
This was the point when the Chinese car market was developing rapidly, fueled by Tesla and more than 100 EV startups like BYD, Xiaopeng, and NIO, all now aggressively competing for customers' attention in an intense price war. And that led, finally last year, to VW losing its position as the top-selling brand to BYD. Chinese consumers now want Chinese electric cars, not VWs. Like Nora Tan, who works for a gaming company in Shanghai and has bought the latest model from Chinese EV startup NIO.
I know Volkswagen were very popular in China because my father had his first car and Volkswagen. But the reason why I don't want to choose a car from a Western car maker like Volkswagen is that I don't think their technology is up to date.
Instead, Nora has the features and software she wants in her Chinese EV.
First of all, I like its design. It has different colors. The second is the app. For example, before I enter the car, I can turn on the AC. And the third part is how I can interact with the kind of robots in the car named Nomi. Hey, Nomi. And it can almost help me do everything I want to do in the car. So actually, I don't use my mobile phone in the car anymore.
There's a lot going on in Chinese cars. It's an entertainment experience as well as a mode of transport.
You can install any app that you want. You can enjoy karaoke in the car, and also you can watch videos.
And it doesn't stop there. Nora's a fan of her car being able to partly drive itself.
已为您重新规划路线，开始导航，本次导航内航开始。
As for the software, you can upgrade only by your phone, so it's really convenient.
And all of this has made VW's cars far less popular. Its EVs are seen to be slower, less affordable, less smart, with fewer features. So the question is, can Volkswagen ever catch up in China and win back consumers like Nora?
I actually worked in China 2017 to 2021. So I witnessed the transformation, a different speed of development to which we've been used to in the Western world.
You know, Volkswagen is one of the biggest players. So I think if anybody has a chance to recover market share, it's going to be Volkswagen. But it's just that the advancement that the Chinese car makers have made is so large and so fast. It's unlikely that they'll ever be able to depend on China for the amount of revenues that they've been able to produce in the past.
The company's biggest headache is just how quickly its nimbler Chinese rivals can develop and roll out new models. It's all about the tech, as Sun Tianya knows well as head of EVs in one of China's largest showroom chains.
好的那面前这个就是目前在中国卖的最好的高端的新能源车，它是中国最大的这个智能化的这个数字化的公司叫华为来赋能的。
The role of tech firms like Huawei is a central problem for VW and all legacy car makers. Software and AI are now at the core of the car, not engineering.
那我们可以看一下 Tesla 和中国的这些玩家们，他们都是在智能化领域站在了风口浪尖上。那这已经不再是一个工业化产业链的竞争，而是一个包含了 AI， 包含了芯片，包含了程序软件，包含了云，包含了算法，包含了工业化电池。所以说，欧洲的这些车厂，我感觉他们还是仍然专注在了能源和驱动和整车的这些行驶上面，而没有放在智能化这个领域。
I don't think we've been complacent in China. It's not just that they're new players with new technologies. The new players have lower cost base, higher efficiency and productivity. So it has created additional challenges to improve competitiveness.
But while Volkswagen faces growing competition and a fierce price war in China, a different problem's brewing at home. Europe's struggled to recover first from the pandemic and then Russia's war in Ukraine, which has ramped up energy prices and helped cause a cost of living crisis.
People are fearing for their jobs, so they are not doing big expenses like buying a car. They're rather sticking to their existing car.
The slump in the European car market is staggering. Nearly 2 million fewer cars are sold a year compared to before the pandemic. And that means, for Volkswagen Group, with nearly a quarter of the market, a loss of about 500,000 cars a year. Still, investors are betting growth will come back to Europe, and EV sales have recently picked up, but it's going to be a tough fight for share. BYD and other leading Chinese EV makers who've already hit VW hard in China have their eyes set on Europe and are already expanding rapidly.
I was on the dock in Bremen when the first big car transporter of BYD docked. And it seemed like a big moment. You know, the Chinese electric vehicle revolution had just washed up onto the shores of Europe.
The tight squeeze in Europe and China has made VW look elsewhere for future profits. The US.
US is a very important market for us. If you look at the global situation, then you've got Europe that will continue stagnating. You've got China, which is probably still going to grow, but very competitive. So we have a growth strategy for the US.
This is not the first time VW's tried to make it big in the US. But its last push ended with Dieselgate, one of the largest corporate scandals of recent times, when the company cheated on emissions. 10 years on, it's trying again. But there's a dark cloud on the horizon.
The European Union's been very bad to us. It's got to be fair and reciprocal. It's got to be fair. They send millions of cars in a year, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, BMWs.
Tariffs have been Donald Trump's response. And these have hit car makers and their global supply chains especially hard.
Volkswagen management do point to this rise in the US sales, but it's still very small. And so that will be a big challenge going forward. Expanding your presence in the US now will be, tricky in the Donald Trump era.
Tariffs will be pretty tough because every automotive manufacturer are manufacturing globally. So they import cars from the US to Europe, from Europe maybe to China, back and forth. So it will be a mess.
Coming in with the Trump administration, you need to push more of the production to the US. That, of course, means laying off people here. Unless they come over to America, but I don't think that's Mr. Trump's idea.
This unraveling of free trade, the rise of Chinese rivals, a struggling Europe, and a race to develop more sustainable technology like EVs are unprecedented challenges for the world's second largest car maker.
German factories remain a key part of our global production footprint, as does, for example, a factory in Mexico, or our factories in the US, or our factories in South America. But the key thing is we have to improve the competitiveness of our capacity in Germany.
It's individual plants that will feel the pain, like Zwickau in eastern Germany, cradle of Volkswagen's EV switch.
I mean, it was a tough negotiation for sure, but we also cannot ignore the reality. All the German plants have to improve the productivity in order to have a secure and safe future.
Under the deal, Zwickau will lose its pioneering production of electric cars to Wolfsburg and Western Germany. It's a major blow and came as a surprise to Konstanz Arndt, mayor of Zwickau, where Volkswagen is the largest employer.
Ja, also ich habe damit nicht gerechnet. Nicht nur die Mitarbeiter bei VW, sondern alle Menschen in der Region, die ja irgendwie alle von VW leben, da schon auch Befürchtungen haben, Ängste haben, wie es eben jetzt weitergeht. Und das ist ein Thema, was uns jeden Tag beschäftigt im Moment.
Our target is clear. For the next 5 years, we are going to fight for the plant. I would say roughly 20% needs to be reduced, and therefore we need the productivity here. So I think that we need to rethink how to build a car, what is the work content.
But none of this will matter if the EV cars made in the German factories still don't sell.
We want to be able to offer competitive new technology at a price point which enables entry-level customers to come in and have a product range which enables a customer to stay with the brand.
Their approach is the right one, to bring costs down and to develop new models. But they have to bring the right car. We saw the ID.3 that didn't get any high acceptance rate. Now the ID.7 is far better and the acceptance rate is far higher. So if you hit the right product, then they are back in the game. Then they get more scale in their factories, and then the cost issue is over.
We really heard the voice of the customers. There have been huge improvements, and now we keep up to it.
But to really bring e-mobility to everyone in a VW-branded car, yes, they do need the more affordable cars.
And the company plans to launch a more affordable EV next year. And in 2027, the entry-level ID.1 at 20,000 euros. But is this quick enough?
These cars need to come in faster because people are trusting in VW. People want to drive a VW, and they need to really speed up that one.
In China, Volkswagen will have to work extra hard to bring back once loyal consumers. In just a few years, it spent billions of euros on initiatives such as a new R&D center. And it's had no choice but to work more closely with EV rivals like Xiaopeng, which it's taken a stake in.
这个其实大众跟小鹏，我个人觉得这两个公司的合作，可以说是帮大众在中国市场能否长期的延续下去，是它的关键的一步。
Focused execution.
Adapted to the new reality of China, where we will make products for China in China, and most of that product development is battery electric vehicles. From 2026 onwards, we will be back in the game.
So when they are coming in with all these new models and changing over, I think it takes another 2 to 3 years. And then, of course, gaining the trust from the consumers that they are delivering against the Chinese digital customer, who is the most digital customer anywhere in the world.
The agreement between Volkswagen's managers and workers is protecting factories and jobs in Germany for the moment. But the union will still face pressure from shareholders to move production to lower-cost countries.
The agreement that they reached, it's nowhere from the kind of the radical restructuring measures that the management had said is needed to cut costs more aggressively. So we'll probably keep seeing these very tough negotiations between its unions and the management.
Die Industrialisierung ist für eine Industrienation wie Deutschland eigentlich eine Horrorvorstellung. Ich war aber klar, wir brauchen trotzdem eine Antwort auf die Überkapazitäten. Und Sie haben recht, deswegen wird Volkswagen auch schrumpfen, aber in einer Form, wo die Sicherheit für die Beschäftigten auch bleibt.
With the union veto on VW's plans to close factories, one option still on the table is to sell them instead. Ironically, potential buyers include those rival Chinese EV makers looking to expand production in Europe.
We're open for any discussion on any topic with any partner. So we don't exclude anything. In a dynamic world, you have to keep all options open.
Few people believe that Volkswagen could ever disappear. The company is simply too big to fail. And it's also a symbol of Germany, a point of pride to a lot of Germans. It's managed to survive crisis and scandal before, thanks to its sheer size, vast R&D budget, and loyal customers. So far. But Volkswagen needs to sell cars that consumers want. The next 2 or 3 years will decide the future of Volkswagen and all legacy car makers, as will the ways in which politicians deal with the electric car revolution and global trade war. It will make all the difference, not just to Volkswagen, but to the future of manufacturing in Germany and Europe.